Hi, this is Last Shadow. I'm gonna start video blogging instead of writing blogs because writing blogs is actually a lot more of a hassle than people might think that it is.
LS is one of the most iconic figures in the history of League of Legends. He has coached multiple professional league teams, casted on the official LCK broadcast, and has been one of the largest English league streamers for years now. Whether you love him or hate him, his thoughts and philosophies about the game can be found in every corner of League of Legends discourse. If you search his name in the item shop, Liandry shows up. That's all that needs to be said. I've never felt like I ever fully grasped the enigma that is LS's mind. His constant talk of themes and magic colors that I don't understand, Dragon Ball Z references that sometimes come out of nowhere, and at the end of every patch rundown, he utters sentences I never thought I would hear in my entire life to describe how we like to play dress up in our video game. Then one day everything changed. I had an epiphany, and suddenly I could understand LS on a level that is completely fabricated and in my head because I'm a complete random, but his viewpoint on the game made so much more sense to me. LS isn't crazy. He's a StarCraft player. StarCraft is the first esport I ever followed, and I had known that he played Brood War in SC2 for more than a decade now. I have personally watched him play ladder games of Brood War on stream. Specifically, I can remember a TBT where he got extremely far behind, and his opponent was BMing him the entire game, telling him to leave, and in classic LS fashion, he played defensively, teched up to battle cruisers, and with some Yamato cannons, won a grueling TBT. Or as some would say, a normal TBT. Odds are most people who follow LS don't even know about his extensive past in RTS, and even though I was aware that he played, it never clicked in my head to put two and two together in regards to how he sees League of Legends through that lens. I've compiled a few clips of LS himself explaining some of his thoughts on StarCraft that can be extrapolated to League extremely easily. Even if you don't have knowledge of StarCraft, after each clip I will attribute what LS mentions in League of Legends terms. You'll probably be able to piece most of it together anyway, since these are very iterable practices that transcend game genre entirely. Seriously, the overlap is extremely obvious. Another goal of mine in this video is to try and illustrate just how long LS has been making content across multiple games and how consistent his views and messaging have been throughout that time. He isn't just saying shit to say it. This man means it. All the links to the original videos that I found these clips from will be in the description, so make sure you check out the original videos and leave a like. Now to the first clip.
Play for a moment here. You know, you play Terran in one matchup, but then Zerg in the other two. So we're going to consider you for the most part a Zerg player for the moment.
Yeah.
First off, you switched to Zerg from Terran. Why was that? Because you were a Terran in StarCraft 1.
Yeah. Basically, when I came over to StarCraft 2, I had wanted to play Zerg, but I found the most success with Terran, and I was always asked by like friends and stuff for me to play Terran because I played it in Star 1. So I really enjoyed it sort of when I first started playing Star 2, but when I came back, and now being in Korea, I didn't agree with a lot of things that Terran has to do in a lot of matchups, so I just didn't like it.
You hate the Marauder?
I hate the way that it has to deal damage, or the way that it has to constantly be doing something to the opponent. Kind of like how Protoss was in StarCraft 1. You couldn't let the opponent relax, or you kind of fell behind. And the longer the game goes, Terran gets weaker and weaker. I mean, that's my opinion. But anyways, Zerg, it's kind of like Flash's mindset in Star 1. If you can defend everything and you have the ultimate mechanics, you shouldn't lose to your opponent. And right now, I think Zergs are losing, not because they're like maybe worse mechanic-wise, but because the game's still so new. Like, new strategies and new timings and stuff like that, they're still coming out, whereas Brood War and, you know, its end days or whatever, everything was figured out. So if you could defend everything with Terran, Flash style, you generally always won. It was hard to beat Flash, and Zerg's kind of the same way. In Terran vs. Zerg, I play mechanic only, so it's the same exact concept.
Yeah. I like your answers, man. Sounds like you learned from Artosis or something.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Does any of this sound familiar? How often have you heard LS mauled over the exact concepts that he brought up in this video a billion years ago? His reference to Terran needing to deal damage constantly in order to not fall behind can be easily compared to what LS refers to as center champions or team compositions, whose win conditions rely on creating advantages through aggressive tactics and pressure that must be artificially created through execution and outplaying your opponents mechanically. The longer the game goes for these comps, the worse it gets for them. He also mentions another LS staple, and that playing defensively or scaling, if done properly with perfect execution, should be unbeatable. If you are good enough, playing in that style means that even in the act of doing nothing, you are actively increasing your chances of winning, which is the exact opposite of what a center comp, or Terrans, as LS mentioned in the clip, have to do. In this clip, the man interviewing LS is a StarCraft legend as well, Artosis. He has a great quote that goes something like, "When you are ahead, get more ahead. If you are more skilled than your opponent, your objective should be to limit variance, not increase it, as the lower the variance, the more controllable the outcomes. If you are better, there is nothing better to do than nothing. Going full Zug Zug is like putting all of your retirement money into NFTs. If you cash out and convince a greater fool to buy it off of you, the profit you can get can be massive. But at the same time, if the guy managing your money is a coked out bronze shitter, then you can lose everything in an instant. Playing defensive and scaling is like investing in an index fund. Where it lacks in sex appeal, it makes up for in ironclad results." By the way, when LS mentions the strength and state of Zerg, at the time this interview was taken, Zerg had been underperforming, but as time went on, Zerg became so dominant that rumors of a Zerg cabal holding the balance team hostage to avoid nerfs arose.
Protoss has the strongest upgrades in the game. They also have the strongest spellcasters in the game. While it's arguable if they have the greatest endgame army, as opposed to the Broodlord, Corruptor, and Fester, it still is an extremely powerful army. And in the proper control, you're going to be dodging EMPs, you're going to be dodging fungals, and you're going to be blinking stalkers, almost perfectly, and casting force fields at a perfect range and stuff like that. So while that does come down to the player, it has nothing to do with the race overall. Oftentimes, I constantly see Protoss players get on 3 bases, they get a small advantage, and then they attack into a Terran, only to be blanketed by EMPs, lose their army, and then cry about imbalance. One of the Protosses that everyone might be familiar with about crying about stuff like this is Rain Perfect, who actually has no idea, how to play his own race, and yet he constantly cries about it 24/7.
Playing in a way that LS just described is near impossible. Pay attention to how many times he says the word perfect when describing what a Protoss should be doing in order to outplay Broodlord and Fester, one of the most infamous unit compositions in all of StarCraft 2. Playing in such a manner requires impeccable mechanics in order to walk the tightrope between taking every economical advantage you can find while also getting maximum value out of every unit through microcontrol. If you falter at all, you fall off that rope and it's over for you. That doesn't mean it is a bad strategy though, quite the contrary. Just because a style of play seems nigh impossible, that doesn't mean you shouldn't work toward conquering it. The greatest gamer of all time is the StarCraft Bonjour Flash. If you've never heard of him, consider this. One of the many titles bestowed upon him is God. Yes, G-O-D, God. Flash embodies everything LS loves. Perfect defense, perfect macro, perfect mechanics. No one was better at walking the tightrope of survival and death like Flash. He revolutionized the Terran race and the game as a whole. In the Brood War galaxy, the sun orbits Flash. And yet Flash is not all-knowing or all-powerful. He plays with the same information as everyone else when he loads into the game. He still loses. He isn't perfect. Just because a style of play is difficult does not mean that the pursuit of that style is fruitless. If you aren't good enough to pull off a strategy, it's not the strat's fault. It's you. LS using the term theme or Magic the Gathering colors to refer to a game state or how a team comp should operate is ingenious for its simplicity as well as its versatility, and is one of the more underappreciated aspects of his analysis. For example, when he mentions the Protoss going full Zug Zug into a Terran and dying, in that moment, the Protoss was not playing to the theme of his race. He was acting as the wrong color. That line of play was not optimal in his game state, and trying to force a victory lost him the match. That doesn't mean Terran is imbalanced. It means the player misunderstood his position inside the game relative to what he was capable of. And of course, a dash of flame to round out the clip.
So when you're mutual with someone on IC Cup, when they come online, you get a notification in game that like this player has come online. Yosh would come online. Everyone would just F10N, which is like F10 surrender, like leave the game. And they would immediately go to OPTOT, which is where everyone hung out, and it would just be about who can get the game with Yosh, because Yosh wasn't online very often, but when he was, everyone wanted to play him. And Yosh was really cool. He was 25 years old. I think he had a master's degree from UC Berkeley. Yeah, Yosh was something else. And then in StarCraft 2, Yosh was on Skype with me like 8 to 12 hours a day for 3 weeks straight when I swapped to StarCraft 2, and we did a lot of coaching and like philosophical talks about strategy and how you approach learning things and how you approach breaking things down and how you go about recognizing that like what is good now is not good forever, and like it really shaped how I think about things in games to this day. Yeah, Yosh like completely evolved like everything, because a lot of people don't know I used to like to sin pretty much all the time. In StarCraft, I was always the aggressive player. I used higher variance gameplay. I liked mechanics. I really like, if I had played League when I played StarCraft before I met Yosh, I would be like the LeBlanc Kiana, like Fizz Katarina player.
Something LS is famous for is his generosity. Only he knows how many people he has helped to enter Korea, set up affordable places to stay, how many people he has let live in his home, how many people he has coached privately, and so on. Is it really a surprise given what you just heard? Just like LS was helped and tutored, he tries his best to teach others. Like a wise mystical tree, if you will. Any sinner can be redeemed, as long as you go to church and pay your tithe to Boris. Unless you play Warwick top, there is no hope for you, I'm afraid. LS's theory on optimal strategy has remained constant for generations of esport games. He has been one of the most forward-facing, public, candid figures in any game that he has covered, and he has found himself at one controversy or another throughout. This is something that isn't unique to League of Legends. Being a part of drama and controversy is something LS knows all too well from his Brood War days. This clip I will leave you with is more evidence that the man you see flame B1 Renekton picks in draft was forged in a different game long ago. But that's a story for another time.
This is kind of hard. If I could thank someone that has helped me get to this point in life, I guess it's not a person, but it's Team Liquid and how they treated me. Because they made me feel so shunned and neglected that the drive and energy that they kind of gave me to overcome that and just keep pushing forward and kind of saying, you know, that's not going to stop me, helped me not just in StarCraft, but other things, because my like arrogance or my pride was able to be built off that, but then also molded in different areas to help me just become a better person. You know, had Team Liquid not had just done the stuff that they did, had they just kind of let me back into the community with like a slap on the wrist sort of thing, I don't know if I would have, you know, gone back to cheating when I was 15, 16, maybe even 17, you know, randomly or occasionally. But overall, they helped me a lot. My hopes are that for these last 5 years that I endured all this flame, all this bullshit, all this, you know, smack talk, every door, not just even shut in my face, but like slammed, all the ridicule and everything. I hope that I didn't just push through all of that for nothing. And like you know, I don't know any other foreigner that would have kept going after the amount of shit that I had to put up with, and yet I'm here today. So I hope it's not all in vain, and I hope that I can control myself mentally to keep improving the way that I am, and that I can actually be a foreigner that remains in Korea and isn't just, you know, swept under the rug like everyone else that has come out here and, you know, faced the Korean challenge.